today's the day. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel again. Thank y'all so much for coming over, man. We're on the Rap Lore channel, which I'll leave in the description for you guys to check out more and even subscribe. It says everything you need to know before Diddy's trial. They're selecting the jury today. I don't know how this gonna go, if this gonna be quick, if it's gonna be long. I don't know. But I'll just say for all those people who are involved as far as testifying, I hope they continue to stay safe. Because you just don't know. You just don't know what could happen, man. But whew, this trial is about to be something, man. Because this brother could be facing a lot of time. So appreciate y'all. We ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
Diddy's trial is right around the corner, and it's about to be an all-out war.
Is there anything that you may want to confess tonight before you go in?
I keep everything right here. There you go. Or right here.
There you go.
We're only days away from the start of Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial, and the entire rap game is shook about what might go down. Diddy's lawyers have already filed a desperate motion to delay their client's case, only to be brutally shut down by the judge. With everything set to kick off on May 5th, the whole world is wondering what's actually gonna happen inside that courtroom. That's why we're doing a comprehensive primer on everything you need to know before Diddy's trial starts. What are the exact crimes Diddy is accused of committing? Why are the feds hitting Diddy with the same law used to take down the mafia? And which one of Diddy's accusers refuses to stay anonymous? We've even dug through hundreds of pages of legal documents to figure out all the behind-the-scenes drama happening in the courtroom. Why did one of Diddy's high-powered lawyers suddenly quit the case? And who's the heavy-hitter rap game attorney that they're tapping to replace him? Finally, we're gonna give a thorough play-by-play preview of how the first days of the Diddy trial might play out. How are Diddy's lawyers and the feds gonna handle the jury selection process?
His resolve is the same. He believes he's innocent. I believe he's innocent, and we're gonna fight this case with all of our might until we don't have to fight any longer.
Back in September of 2024, the federal government unveiled a massive criminal indictment against Diddy. In the document, the feds accused Diddy of masterminding his very own organized crime ring. The indictment claims that Diddy used the employees' resources and influence of his billion-dollar business to carry out crimes, and that he was a shot caller who ordered members and associates to do his bidding. Prosecutors say that Diddy, quote, abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. More specifically, the indictment goes into detail about how Diddy allegedly used his employees to arrange his so-called freak-offs. And in case you don't know what the freak-offs are, that's what Diddy allegedly called his sex parties. Prosecutors claim that Diddy regularly transported female and male sex workers to take part in his freak-offs, and that he drugged them to keep them obedient and compliant. The indictment also alleges that Diddy would keep these sex workers in line with physical, emotional, and verbal abuse, including, quote, acts of violence and threats of violence. Basically, the indictment paints a very, very dark picture of Diddy allegedly using drugs, violence, and tons of money to throw these insane sex parties for himself. In total, Diddy was hit with 3 felony charges: racketeering, sex trafficking, and transporting to engage in prostitution. But that wasn't all.
I'm just wondering how many of the people that attended these parties knew, as far as like, I wonder if any of these women or these workers confided in any of these people they were with, like get me out of here, or I don't know, because like I just don't know what they thought it was gonna be, to what extent it was gonna be when they got there. And then they're like, hold on, I didn't sign up for this. I'm cool with doing that, but not this, you know? So, yeah. It's going to be very interesting, man.
Because in the months since that first indictment, the feds have doubled back and dropped 3 superseding indictments on Diddy's head. This basically means that investigators have added fresh evidence and allegations to stack on top of their initial indictment. The first superseding indictment was filed on January 30th of 2025. In the 15-page document, prosecutors expanded the timeline around Diddy's racketeering charges from 2004 to 2024. And while the new indictment didn't contain any new charges, it added 2 new sex trafficking victims and accused Diddy of dangling someone from a high-rise apartment balcony. On March 6, less than 2 months later, the feds dropped another superseding indictment. This new document also didn't contain new charges, but it included more info on the feds' allegations, including accusations that Diddy forced employees to work long hours with no sleep and threatened them. But on April 3rd, prosecutors unleashed a third superseding indictment, and this one had grave ramifications for Diddy's case. The latest update stacked 2 more charges against Diddy, 1 additional sex trafficking by force offense and 1 additional transportation to engage in prostitution offense. But what kind of prison time is Diddy looking at for these alleged crimes? The mandatory minimum for Diddy's twin sex trafficking by force charges is 15 years, but the maximum is life in prison. Meanwhile, Diddy's 2 transportation to engage in prostitution charges can rack up a maximum of 10 years behind bars. But the allegation that Diddy's lawyers are most worried about is the racketeering charge.
Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity.
While there's been a ton of focus on the sex trafficking allegations against Diddy, the racketeering charge against him could easily carry the biggest legal consequences. In fact, if a jury finds Diddy guilty on the racketeering count alone, it could get him life in prison. And if you don't know what racketeering means, it's a term that basically says that someone set up an illegal business or organization. 15 years ago, the government passed the RICO Act to target organized crime groups like the mafia. Basically, if you got hit with a racketeering and conspiracy charge, commonly known as RICO, it means that the feds are saying that any crimes you committed were part of a criminal conspiracy. Prosecutors have used RICO charges to go after everyone from John Gotti to the Chicago Mafia to Young Thug's YSL Records. But there's where it gets super tricky for Diddy. In order to find Diddy guilty on his RICO charge, prosecutors only need to prove that he committed 2 of the crimes that he's been accused of. When you read the indictment, the feds allege that Diddy ordered associates to commit sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, robbery, and obstruction of justice. So if the government can convince jurors that Diddy committed any 2 of these so-called predicate offenses, then he'll automatically be found guilty on his RICO count. The federal sentencing guidelines also means Diddy would rack up major prison time for any of the crimes he's found guilty under his RICO charge. That means it's very, very possible that Diddy's RICO charge alone can get him put behind bars for the rest of his life, even if he's acquitted on all other counts. When you take a closer look at the legal documents, it seems...
See, I wonder if he's going to talk about, like, what are the chances of him not getting any jail time? You know what I mean? Because this is a lot, y'all. This is a lot that he's being, charged with or whatever. So my whole thing is like, at the minimum, what are we looking at? At the minimum. That's why I was like, if he gets no jail time, something went down. Definitely.
that the feds have tons of evidence that will back up their RICO charge. In a letter to the court, prosecutors alleged that Diddy's co-conspirators were involved in the arson attack on an unnamed individual's car and that they have multiple witnesses on standby who are ready to testify about the incident. While the victim in the attack isn't named, the story sounds suspiciously like a situation that Kid Cudi confirmed happened to him in 2012. I've already done a breakdown on the allegations that Diddy retaliated against Kid Cudi by blowing up his car, and it sounds like that situation might play a huge role in the Fed's RICO case against Diddy. Diddy's lawyers are gonna have to be on point to fight that racketeering charge, especially since the sentencing guidelines are so severe. The Feds also clearly have a bunch of witnesses ready to go on record and testify against Diddy.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
While prosecutors say there are co-conspirators who will go on record, they also expect 4 different accusers to take the stand during the trial. But the feds have been very careful to shield the identities of these accusers. In the 4 unsealed indictments filed against Diddy, the accusers are only identified as Victim 1, Victim 2, Victim 3, and Victim 4. 3 of Diddy's accusers have requested that their identities be kept secret from the public and reporters in order to protect their safety and privacy. But prosecutors say that one accuser, Victim 1, is prepared to testify under her own name. That accuser is none other than Cassie Ventura, who was in an on and off again relationship with Diddy for 11 years. Now, Cassie's pretty much the reason why this whole scandal kicked off in the first place. 10 months before Diddy was arrested and hit with Fed charges, Cassie unveiled a shocking civil lawsuit against her former partner. The lawsuit alleged that Diddy beat, trafficked, and sexually assaulted Cassie.
I'm wondering, is Cassie gonna end up bringing other names? You know what I mean? I wonder, is she gonna say, oh yes, this person knew about it too. They knew what was going on. Because I see a lot of people say, why didn't she just get away? People don't, it don't work like that. It don't work like that. When you got the money that Diddy has, it's easy to get people to follow her, track her every step, make sure this and that is happening. Yeah. So I'm just wondering what else or who else is going to be brought into this. Because she get on that stand, you know, them lawyers are yeah.
For over a decade, and that he used his vast connections as a label boss to ruthlessly control her life. Just one day after Cassie's lawsuit was filed, Diddy settled with her for an undisclosed amount. Terms of the settlement weren't made public, and Diddy's lawyers stressed that him paying up was not an admission of guilt. But it's safe to say that the insanely quick settlement raised a lot of eyebrows, even though Diddy called the allegations outrageous and offensive. But some key details in Cassie's lawsuit did get proven out. One allegation Cassie made was that Diddy violently attacked her in the hallway of an LA hotel, and that he paid the hotel in order to get access to the security footage. 6 months after the lawsuit was filed, footage from 2016 leaked that showed Diddy allegedly hitting, kicking, and dragging Cassie in a hotel hallway, seemingly backing up her accusations. Diddy responded by releasing an apology video where he said that he was disgusted with himself. Meanwhile, Diddy's lawyers defended the footage as a glimpse into a complex but decade-long consensual relationship. Diddy's attorneys also claimed that the hotel security footage was manipulated and tried to prevent the video from being shown at trial. The lawyers alleged that the video was supposedly sped up and shown out of sequence, claiming that it was deceptive. But on April 25th, Judge Arun Subramanian completely shut down Diddy's attempts to keep the footage out of the trial, ruling that some of the video will be shown to jurors. Prosecutors also plan to include 9 videos of Diddy's so-called freak-off tapes that were reportedly provided to the government by Cassie Ventura. While Diddy's lawyers argue that the videos confirm Mr. Combs' innocence, Cassie's testimony and involvement is obviously going to play a major role in the government's case against their client. But there's also been some really significant shakeups going on behind the scenes.
When a top attorney quits your case in the language used, under no circumstance can I continue. I think people are just pointing at that and say, uh-oh, he can't defend him, you know, and making their own assumptions from there. There have been kind of reports circulating. It seemed like there was a breakdown between Diddy's attorneys about going to trial in May.
The huge amount of scrutiny on the trial also means that Arun Subramanian, the judge presiding over the case, faces a ton of pressure. Subramanian used to work as a law clerk for the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Subramanian has been on the bench since 2023, ever since President Joe Biden nominated him as a federal judge. But Subramanian wasn't even the first judge assigned to Diddy's case. The previous judge, Andrew Carter, was swapped out in October of 2024 without a reason being given. That's not all though, because Diddy's defense roster has gone through some major changes too. In February of 2025, reports surfaced that attorney Anthony Ricco quit the Bad Boy Boss's stacked legal defense team. Like Diddy, Ricco is a Harlem native, and he had tons of experience defending some really notorious, well-known figures. Rico was once Osama bin Laden's defense attorney, and he also helped secure an acquittal for guest card is Nora, an undercover cop who shot an unarmed black man named Sean Bell in 2008. Rico's seasoned reputation made his departure all the more surprising. According to a notice filed on February 20th, Rico wrote, quote, "Under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel without giving any further details." Despite Rico leaving the defense team, Diddy has retained a squad of 5 other defense attorneys. His team is led by Mark Agnifilio, who has his own history of defending controversial figures. He previously represented the so-called farmer bro Martin Shkreli and Keith Raniere, founder of the infamous sex cult NXIVM. In fact, Agnifilio had already begun to preview his strategy to get Diddy out of jail. On April 25th, Diddy's lawyers argued that their client was a swinger, not a criminal. Quote, "There's a lifestyle, call it swingers or whatever you will, that he thought was appropriate because it was common. Many people think it's appropriate because it's common." Essentially, Agnifilio plans to convince the jury that Diddy did nothing illegal and that the alleged freak-offs were all consensual encounters. But Diddy's still working hard to lure new talent to his side. On April 15th, court documents revealed that high-powered defense attorney Brian Steele requested permission to join Diddy's legal team. While Steele has been a highly respected lawyer for decades, he recently became famous for defending Young Thug during his RICO case. Drake even made a whole song shouting him out called Brian Steele.
Shot Brian Steele, I'm too geek for the guy. Whoa, I've been in the house, but I'm coming outside tonight.
While Thug pleaded guilty on drug and gun related charges, he was allowed to go home after spending 2.5 years in state custody. Thug's release from jail was seen as a stunning victory, especially since he was facing a potential 120-year prison sentence. By getting Brian Steele to represent him, Diddy is clearly taking those racketeering charges mentioned before seriously. But Brian isn't the only hotshot attorney that Diddy's been trying to recruit. Joe Tacopina, who recently helped A$AP Rocky score an acquittal in his assault case, revealed during an interview with The Breakfast Club that Diddy was actively trying to hire him. Tacopina, however, said that he wasn't planning to work for Diddy, all because he wanted to stay loyal to his longtime clients, Jay-Z and Roc Nation.
I represent Roc Nation. A lot of people in Rock I'm very close with. That's sort of family to me. And, you know, I don't think they're sort of
see eye to eye on things.
See eye to eye with me.
Last question.
But just weeks later, Tacopina gave an interview to Vlad TV where he walked back some of his Diddy criticism.
I didn't turn him down because I don't like him or I don't believe in his case. I think he's got a very defensible case. I mean, this whole case boils down to an issue of consent, right? And as far as I know, I don't know all the evidence, but it's an issue of consent, right? Did they consent or did they not? I mean, was a gun put to someone's head? Or did they want to do it because they were getting all the perks associated with being part of a Diddy party and being one of Diddy's entourage?
And in an even more recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter this past April, Tacopina seemed way more open to joining Diddy's team. Quote, "I'm going to speak with him. I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just gonna listen." Diddy is clearly trying to hire some of the biggest defense attorneys in the game right before his...
Rich is kind of crazy too, because if you think about all the stuff Wendy Williams has talked about Diddy, and then he, you know, is supposedly to be, he's trying to work with Wendy Williams. So it's like, he finna go and listen to Diddy. I'm just wondering how Wendy Williams feel about that and her peoples, you know. That's where that money come in.
Case begins. But is this an act of desperation or part of his master strategy? And what exactly is going to happen on May 5th, the first day of trial?
It will be up to 12 residents of 8 New York counties, including some from upstate, to decide whether Sean Diddy Combs walks away from this case a free man or stays locked down for decades.
The case is set to begin with jury selection. Diddy's lawyers are already prepping jury questionnaires that they plan to use so they could weed out which prospective jurors might be more sympathetic to their defense. According to reports, Diddy's defense team plans to question jurors about their views on subjects like drug abuse, alcoholism, violence, and people with multiple sexual partners. In a letter submitted to the court, Diddy's lawyers say the questionnaires will help jurors be more open about their opinions. Quote, "Because this trial involves content that is sensitive and private in nature, many individuals are uncomfortable speaking about these issues in front of others and would be more candid writing about them in a questionnaire." Diddy's lawyers also want to quiz jurors on if they watched any documentaries on their clients since the charges were announced against him. Given the staggering amount of media attention focused on Diddy, his attorneys are going to be on the lookout for any jurors who might have been influenced by outside content. However, prosecutors have outright criticized Diddy's jury selection strategy. They say the questionnaire is way too long since it contains 72 questions, and that the subjects they touch on would be better addressed if a judge asked them instead. If the jury selection process goes according to schedule, opening statements from the prosecution and defense are set to begin 1 week later on May 12th. While a jury selection typically takes about a week, it could easily take much longer since this is such an intensive, high-profile case. For comparison, the 1994 trial for O.J. Simpson had a punishing 11-week jury selection process.
Damn.
Given Diddy's notoriety and fame, it's very possible that jury selection could drag on here too. Diddy's defense attorneys have every reason to fight tooth and nail to get jurors that might be more favorable to their client, and based on their questionnaire, they're prepared to do exactly that. Now, with jury selection right around the corner, the clock is ticking. Diddy's trial promises to shake up the entire music industry, and we're gonna be locked in to cover every single detail of it. So definitely stay tuned.
To be honest with you, I feel like some people in the jury are going to want to convict him just based off that Cassie video, if we're just being honest. And I seen a lot of people saying this is his karma because he didn't get in trouble for that video or what he did to Cassie. They're not, charging him for that, but they're saying like, look, hey, you need to get your karma. A lot of people are probably going to be doing that. But that was an amazing breakdown and information. Again, I'm going to try to leave as much as possible. What I do is I'll upload it, and then it'll be like age restricted or this or that. And then I have to edit out things that can possibly get your video. You know what I mean? So, yeah, because they'll demonetize it. But, yeah, selecting the jury today, we'll see how fast that happens. Or is it going to get dragged? Like, this trial could be very, very long. Dang. We're going to see, man. We're going to see what happens. I'm just glad that they were still able to protect and keep those people who are going to testify private. Hopefully they can continue to. Appreciate y'all coming over and watching, man. Peace out.